Number 1. This started about a month ago on weekends. To help better explain the story, I'll explain my house. The house is actually a rather large 2-story house. Or was. It was split into 3 separate apartments well before I ever moved in. There are 2 down on the first floor and 1 upstairs. The apartment next door is occupied by one of my best friends, and the upstairs apartment is very recently empty. I've lived here for 6 years with a roommate, our 3 cats, and my dog. Her and I have never had any issues prior to this, but very recently, our dog started barking randomly at nothing during the night, or so we thought. He would look out of a window very intently, then run to the front door, barking the whole way. We actually thought he was just seeing a cat or a rabbit, and brushed it off, just telling him to hush. One night, my neighbor came knocking, and said he thought he'd seen someone out on his porch. He said he grabbed a cane, and tried to follow them, but they jumped over the porch and ran off. Since then, we made sure to check every time my dog seemingly barked at nothing during the night. And my neighbor had seen a figure suddenly bolt at least twice upon checking. We've called the cops, but they said there wasn't much they could do. They asked if there was anyone we can think of who may be messing with us. And while there were some neighbors we occasionally had to call the landlord on, there was no one we can think of. The issues we'd had with them had never been more serious than them being a little loud at 3 a.m. on a drunken Friday night. So we continued to live our normal lives. My roommate works 3rd shift, while I and my neighbor work 2nd shift, although he had just recently switched to this shift from 3rd shift himself. Nothing ever happened when I was home alone, and I figured it was over. Recently, however, I got a girlfriend, and due to scheduling, we'll usually spend the night at her house in the middle of the week, as those are often when my days off occur. Meaning at night, there was no one home except for my dog, as my roommate only has weekends off. Last week, I was at my girlfriend's, and things weren't going well. We'd had a bit of a fight, so I was lying in bed, mulling things over in my head, unable to sleep. As I'm lying there around 2 a.m., my phone buzzes. I check it and see a text from my roommate, asking me to call her when I get the text. I figured she's on break at work and just bored, or wants to shoot the shit about Overwatch, since it had just come out and I hadn't got to play it yet, having not been home. I give her a call, and she says she's at home, and thinks somebody has been in the house. I ask what makes her think that, and she says our neighbor had gotten home late from his job around 1:30. He said he'd been home watching random stuff on YouTube, laughing rather loudly since he thought he was literally the only person in the house. He said he thought he heard someone walking around, and at first thought it was me, until he remembered I was at my girlfriend's. He then wondered why my dog didn't bark, until he realized I'd taken my dog with me since her kids wanted to meet him. He called my roommate to ask her if she called off work, when he said he started hearing a scratchy meow outside his window. He walked outside to find our eldest cat outside, meowing to be allowed back into the house. Our cats never go outside normally, but had once before, so we scooped him up and went over to our apartment. The door that separates our apartment is normally unlocked since he comes over a lot, and puts him down. He tells my roommate this, and she then told her boss, who told her to come home. My roommate came home and said she found our front door unlocked, which she never leaves unlocked, and the door to our sunroom was shut. We never shut that door since our cat's litter boxes are in there, and they wouldn't be able to get into them if we did. She's checking around and finds boxes moved out of our hall closet, and a bunch of my card games and board game boxes scattered around. not how we had left them. She said she then heard a meow and found one of our cats shut in the bedroom. Every day before she leaves, she makes sure no cats are in there, since one has a bad habit of pissing on the bed if shut in there. Also, our bass guitar was knocked off its guitar stand and onto the floor. None of the cats weigh enough to knock over that thing, especially not our kitten who was shut in there. So she gets freaked out and checks the windows. One in the sunroom is open so the cats can sit in it and get some air, but the screen is untouched. She said she went outside and found a trash can drug up against the house under that window, as if someone had stood on it to peep in. So best we can figure is someone had been sneaking around here and there, and when they didn't hear our dog bark, they broke in. They must have been in the middle of looking through our stuff when they heard my neighbor laughing, panicked, and ran off. I'm not taking any of this lightly, and will be acquiring a gun since I'm often here alone at night. So, person who has been sneaking around outside my friend and I's window and broke into my apartment, for your sake, let's not meet. Number 2. So this happened a while back, when I was in my early 20s. I was working at a little retail store in my town's mall. It was coming up to the end half of the day, and I don't know how I noticed it, but an older man, probably 50s, I'm not sure, had walked past my store about 3 or 4 times. Not consecutively, just every now and again. Now, I worked in one of those little costume jewelry stores, so it was odd for an older male to be walking past so many times. But I kinda didn't think anything of it. I don't even know how I picked up on it in the first place. It came closing time, and I had left to catch my bus home at about 6:30 p.m. I remember it was transitioning into winter, because it was dark out by then. I'm a very paranoid person. I still live by the stranger danger rules. So, even now, when I leave work, I make sure to change into an outfit less fashionable. I don't like drawing attention to myself in any way possible, so I try to make sure I'm as covered up and average looking as I can be. I don't know why, but I have that disease where I attract all the wrong attention for no reason at all. So as I said, I was waiting for my bus home, sitting by myself at the town center bus terminal, and guess who walks past? The older man. At this point, I kind of felt a little uneasy, but in my head, I try to make reason prevail, as many people take buses all the damn time. My bus showed up and I got on, and well, you can all guess who got on after me. I remember sitting in the seats facing inward, the ones for wheelchairs and prams, and he sat in the first seat above the steps. I remember staring forward and feeling his eyes burning into me. I kept trying to use my peripheral vision to see if he was looking at me, but not wanting him to know I noticed him. The whole bus ride, I waited to see if he got off before my stop, thinking it was just my over-anxious paranoid mind working overtime, until I pressed a button for my stop. I waited until the last possible second to press it, and as I stood up, he did too. I went to walk to the front door of the bus, as he exited the rear. At that moment, as soon as he stepped off, I sat back down again. I had no idea where the bus went after my stop, but honestly, I didn't fucking care. I will never forget the look on his face as the bus drove off. I've never seen such hate and anger in someone's face than I did through that window. His face is burnt into my memory like a photograph, and it still absolutely terrifies me to this day. I have no idea what would have happened to me if I got off the bus at my stop that night, but I'm glad my paranoia was so intense that I didn't. So, creepy older man following me home, let's not meet. Number 3. For a bit of clarity, here's a bit of background context. Matt, or as I've always called him, Matty, is my brother's best friend since they were in middle school. They are both around 4 to 5 years older than me. Due to unfortunate circumstances in Matty's home life, he was essentially adopted into my family, and was often with us day to day, and even spent one Christmas with us. Matty did a lot of photography work, and was also great with computers. This happened last year, so I was freshly 17, and he was 21, and both he and my brother attended the college in my town. One day, after I got home from school, I discovered my computer was being an ass, and refusing to do anything. Since I make YouTube videos, this was a problem. So I shoot Matty a text requesting his assistance, to which he replies saying he will be over shortly to check it out. For the next hour or so, as I was just screwing around and planning for my video, I noticed a car that kept driving past my house. We lived in a nicer neighborhood, so aside from the occasional lost visitor, this was highly uncommon. Finally, Matty arrived, and worked his magic upon my computer. We hung out for a while, catching up and eating an extremely unhealthy amount of snacks. Soon after he left to go back to college, I saw he left his camera sitting on my couch. I sent him a text. "Hey, you forgot your camera." Him, "I'm turning around right now." Me, "Hurry, I'm gonna fill your memory card with pictures of my cat." Him, "Don't you dare." At this point, I had completely forgotten about the passing car, and as I was taking hundreds of pictures of my sleeping cat, I heard a car pull into the driveway and just idle there. After a moment of no Matty, I sent another text. "I'm not bringing it out to you. I don't want to put my shoes back on." I didn't get a response, and from my position in the back of the house, I could see the front windows, and through those windows, I could see a figure, lurking on the front porch, looking through the windows. I almost instantly began to panic, because this short, wide figure didn't match the tall, willowy figure of my pseudo-brother. But again, I text. "What the hell? That's not funny. Stop." No reply, but the figure moved towards the front door and begins to jiggle the handle. Terrified, I grabbed the emergency handgun from its hiding place. What the fuck is this call an emergency services nonsense? And as I'm questioning if I will be able to unload a handgun into a home invader, I see the tall form of Matty come charging across the porch and fly tackles the guy to the ground. Scared for him, I ran to the door to help and held the man at gunpoint while he called the cops and the rest of the family. We later heard from the police that this guy had been watching me, a tragically tiny person, come home to an empty house for the past year at roughly the same time Monday through Friday, and decided that I was an easy target. I don't know what I would have done without Matty, and to this day, whenever the entire family is out together, he is always introduced as our son, or in my case, my brother. I never did make that YouTube video. Before I end this video, I would like to take a second to highly encourage you guys to submit me your own true scary experiences. I would like to start making viewer submission videos, but so far only have one story that was submitted to me. If you would like to hear your story read and like the idea of viewer submission videos, you can submit your stories to the email in the description below. Thank you all for listening. Have a great night, and as always, stay safe.